Vice President Osinbajo flags off Oguta Lake dredging project in Imo State.
The project will promote trade and investment and spur growth in multiple sectors, including shipping.
Our Progressives Congress National Chairman admits error in zoning of 10th National Assembly leadership.
And court adjourns case of leader of proscribed IPOB Nnamdi Kanu to September.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we continue our conversation on utilizing research findings and reports.
Okay, so we'll start with the very question. Why do most research findings and reports remain, of course, on the shelves in Nigeria without being utilized? So who should fund research in any way? And what can be done to change the narratives of researchers and research institutions in Nigeria for national development?
Well, those were some of the questions that guests on Good Morning Nigeria deliberated on yesterday in the first part of our conversation on the utilization of research findings and solutions in Nigeria after May 29th. Now, my colleague Juma and I were on set, Claire, and guests, of course, identified funding and piracy of research works as some of the major challenges.
Okay, in other words, some of the guests, pointed out that prompt release of funds and effective utilization of such funds for research activities are very crucial to getting the dust of rare research findings. Of course, to the point of commercialization for national growth and development, which is very critical.
No question about that. Now, the Director General of the National Institute of Medical Research, Professor Babatunde Salako, featured in the first part of the program, and he noted that research findings and reports are usually meant for human advancement through effective utilization, and they ought, therefore, to affect the people in the university community, and that implies making the town and gown meet through researches that directly affect not just the immediate vicinity before, of course, escalating the impact to the rest of society and the world at large.
And indeed, there was a unanimous submission yesterday that despite best practices in Nigeria, that the gap between research policy and practice is still very, very wide. And that's the reason for the call for a strong collaboration between decision makers and researchers, and that's towards making research findings very practical and even more useful beyond mere academic exercises.
Now, the Deputy Chief Whip of the Senate, distinguished Senator Aliyu Sabi Abdullahi, in his submission criticized the underutilization of funds allocated to some research institutes and advised researchers to set their priorities right by providing policymakers with information that, of course, is simple and not complex for better understanding and appreciation of research purposes and intent.
And so, as we continue our conversation on utilizing research findings and reports in Nigeria today, we shall also touch on aspects of research that border on intellectual property rights and other issues of interest, of course, with the set of guests that we have assembled for today's conversation. So on this note, I welcome you once again to Good Morning Nigeria, and it's live on the network service. I am Claire Adilabu Abdulrazak.
I join my colleague Claire to also welcome you to the program. I'm Kingsley Osadolo, and of course in the course of our program, which is reaching you from nation's capital, we have our regular complimentary segments, newspaper review, business and others. For now, let's join our colleague Zenret Digmon for the highlights of the morning news. Good morning, Zenret.
Good morning, Kingsley and Claire, and here's the morning news. Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo has assured that the federal government will continue to support Imo State government to unlock the economic potentials of the state. He gave the assurance in Oguta while flagging off the dredging project of Oguta Lake up to the Atlantic Ocean.
The project will promote trade and investment and spur growth in multiple sectors, including shipping, manufacturing, agriculture, and also offer numerous opportunities for the people.
Nigeria and the United Kingdom have intensified dialogue of mutual concerns to measure up to various challenges facing the two countries. The meeting held in Abuja aims to renew various bilateral agreements and include legal frameworks on vocational skills acquisition programs for Nigerians, address issues of medical tourism, visa and consular issues of migrants, among others.
We're going to include in this MOU and in our relations vocational and skill acquisition. We're going to be very serious on the issue of a British hospital in Nigeria.
We recognise the skill and the expertise that many Nigerian people bring to the UK, but we want them to do so legally and properly as your authorities do.
A special session of the UN Human Rights Council has opened to discuss the situation in Sudan as more than 750 people have been killed and hundreds of thousands have been displaced in the fighting that began on April 15th. The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, has condemned this wanton violence in which both sides have trampled international humanitarian law, notably the principles of distinction, proportionality and precaution.
Regard of the sovereignty and political independence of Sudan, and indeed an outright dismissal of the efforts and commitments of the African Union, IGAD, UN Security Council and other regional mediation efforts to ensure a lasting ceasefire.
The Supreme Court has adjourned hearing in the suit filed by the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, to September 14, 2023. The five-man panel of justices of the Apex Court, led by Justice John Okoro, gave the order at the resumed hearing of the appeal of Nnamdi Kanu against the verdict of the Court of Appeal sitting in Abuja. Kanu, through his counsel Mike Ozokeme, SAN, on the 3rd November 2022, filed an appeal at the Supreme Court against the Court of Appeal's verdict stopping his release from DSS custody. Nnamdi Kanu, as appellant in this matter, is appealing the October 28, 2022 decision of the Appellate Court, which stayed the execution of its earlier order acquitting him of all charges and directing his release from DSS custody. Mike Ozokome, SAN, before the adjournment pleaded with the five-man panel of justices of the Apex Court to order the release of Nnamdi Kanu from detention on a compassionate ground due to the appellant's alleged ill health. Counsel to the respondent in the matter opposed the prayer of the counsel to the appellant. With this development, Nnamdi Kanu's appeal is due for hearing again on 14th September 2023. Meanwhile, the Presidential Election Petition Court has adjourned to 18th May for further pre-hearing on the petition filed by Atiku Abubakar challenging the election of Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The adjournment was at the instance of counsel to parties in the petition.
We served the other parties the motion for the televising of the proceedings. They explained here that they are still in the process of filing their replies. Therefore, we could not proceed without their input.
There is hope in sight for members of the All Progressives Congress that are agitating for the review of the party's position ahead of the inauguration of the 10th National Assembly, expected to be inaugurated in June. National Chairman of APC, Abdullahi Adamu, told some aspirants of the would-be 10th Senate that the earlier position on zoning was a mistake.
We are doing this for the sake of this party to grow, and we are doing for the best interest of the party. Because as where we are talking today, if we from this side take another decision, it will not be good for all of us. It will become history. So we don't want that to happen.
We just not allow people to divert our attention. Our eyes must stay on the ball.
The People's Democratic Party, PDP, remains a strong political party with capacity to settle its internal disputes. This dominated discussion at a reception organized by the PDP Governors Forum for newly elected governors on the party's platform.
We are happy to bequeath to you, and indeed returning members of this forum, a forum that is strong, cohesive, and vocal in the defense of democracy and good governance in the country.
The party has the capacity to be able to settle its internal problem.
Those are the news highlights for now. Good morning, Nigeria continues with Claire and Kingsley after this break. I am Zania Dingmon. Good morning.
All right, welcome back. If you've just joined in, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria, and it's live on the network service of the NTA. And so we'll talk a bit of business now. We hear the budget office of the Federation is saying that Nigeria now has a limited borrowing space, and that's due to poor debt to revenue ratio. And also coming up, Securities and Exchange Commission launches its first approved commodities fund. Let's join Dr. Alabi for these and more in business news.
The Director General of the Budget Office, Ben Akabweze, says Nigeria has a limited borrowing space due to its poor debt-to-revenue ratio, stressing that the country should not exceed its limits. He said these while addressing members-elect of the 10th National Assembly at an induction ceremony in Abuja, pointing out that while Nigeria remains healthy with its debt-to-GDP ratio, the country is not with its debt-to-revenue ratio. The size of the federal government budget for 2023 created some excitement. The aggregate budget of all the governments in the country amounts to about 30 trillion naira, which is less than 15% in terms of ratio to GDP. Meanwhile, Securities and Exchange Commission has launched first approved commodities fund. The new commodities fund, domiciled in the agroeconomic and extractive sector, was set up with an initial 3 billion naira fund consisting of 30 million units at 100 naira per unit at par, but can be increased subject to the approval of the Securities and Exchange Commission. The fund primarily invests in commodities-linked instruments, operates based on the principles of Sharia, and as such, only invests in halal-certified investment instruments. Securities and Exchange Commission noted that the launch of the fund would play a key role in the attainment of the 2015 to 2025 Nigerian Capital Market Master Plan of the Commission, as one of the cardinal points was for 25% of the market capitalization to come from non-interest areas such as Mabu Halal Commodities Fund. Let's take a look at Thursday's trading on the floor of the exchange. With business news, I am Tokbe Alabi.
Many thanks, Dr. Alabi, for the business package. A review of some of the papers we have this morning is up next.
All right, newspaper reviewer Chukwudi Okolie Ubuaja is here with us. Chukwudi, good morning.
Good morning, Claire. How are you?
You're not looking at me. You should look at me when you say good morning.
No, that's a replica of you here in the papers. Aren't you lucky? You're making headlines. So I was looking at your double. Claire, leave me alone. Kingsley, good morning.
Chukwudi, don't leave me alone.
Did you watch Eaglets yesterday? Oh my God! It was something else. I felt pity for the young eaglets, the under 17.
I think you have a a calculated, concerted effort to make me sound unpatriotic this morning.
No, please.
So
the boys played well.
No, but I watched some of their matches in the course of this tournament, and to be honest with you, I wasn't quite pleased with the depth of their talent, their technique, and all that. Little things that you will expect footballers going for such competitions to know. Well, trapping a ball. Sending a pass to where the pass should go to. Yes, you can miss your passes on occasion, and then you have no good finishers. Most of the goals they scored were just lucky goals.
Precisely, that's what
And then the coach, Unduka Obade, who himself, of course, is a decorated footballer. He was decorated during his much younger days. And we're busy giving saccharine exclamations about how they will do well, how they will go to the World Cup. To be honest with you, sometimes you watch some of these matches and I know the patriotic feelings that Chukwudi is talking about, and you just say to yourself, this is one, it's supposed to be entertainment in the first instance. If you're not getting entertained by that kind of thing, you have a remote control in your hand, you go to another channel. Virtually every day here, we talk about the summit of football in Europe, club football, during World Cup. It isn't as if we're simply just entertaining ourselves or entertaining our viewers. It is that others could learn from the skills and talents and techniques and tactics being displayed by those players at the summit of the game.
So you wonder why we are not very, very interested in developing things that promise us a greater tomorrow.
No, that's not the point. That's not the point. The point is, look, as you're on air, there are persons who will watch you and say, I like the way Chukwudi speaks. Let me pick some words from him. When we were much younger, I mean, that's one of the ways to learn.
Tokumbo Ajayi inspired me.
Yeah, you learn your vocabulary, your construction, your diction, and so on. That's the way it is. Now, the issue I have with that team, because I was just talking about basic skills, trapping a ball, know how to head the ball, and so on and so forth. Were these players picked from the soccer academies around the country? Because I've heard about some academy in Port Harcourt, another one in Kwara also. Are we just breeding those players in academy to send them off to Europe? Were they picked from the academy? Because it is at the academy that you learn these basic skills of dribbling, of passing, and so on.
It sounds so simple, but you know what he just said? He said trapping a ball, making a pass. I made an argument, I think it was the Super Sport GM I was talking with. I said, look, I like Nigerian dribblers better than these people you watch in Europe. He said, Chukwudi, you're not watching football technically. You know, it matters that the ball gets to the set of legs.
I didn't mean to stoke up this. You know? I didn't mean to stoke up these emotions. You know what I mentioned. But so let's just get deep down.
It's not emotions, Claire. It's analysis.
It is not emotions.
So that we learn from it. Because sometimes you are just watching. You are just looking at the tactics of the team. You can't find any.
Do you know the big business football has become? Look at Osimhen's shirts, masks sold out in record time. Yeah. Let's go to a brighter side to it.
And Napoli is placing a premium on him, 160 million euros.
Okay, so we'll leave that to Sports Desk.
No, because every other story on the front page of the paper today in politics, who will leak 10,000.
We'll leave that to Sports Desk.
We must read the papers.
Again, at the same last night, right up to the last seconds of injury time, Juventus against Sevilla. Juventus was 1-0 down.
Yes.
Right to the dying seconds of that match, and then they got an equalizer.
I stepped up. I was surprised. I saw 1-1.
So
when later
and then when this is just happened psychologically, see our boys are drained.
Can we take New Telegraph? Please, if we can have New Telegraph on air so we can look at the front pages. And of course, I see from here talking about aggrieved APC candidates protesting against the party, and of course Tinubu's consensus. That's a major story. And at the foot there, we see at 97, Fashoranti insists on restructuring. Of course, those are the high points of the stories on the front page of the New Telegraph. Kingsley, you want to take more?
Well, there are other headlines in other papers. For instance, the Blueprint newspaper. Blueprint below the nameplate says PDP governance sent forth and reception. Our party receding since 2014, Atiku laments. Charges members to buckle up and reclaim position. Wike Makinde Autumn Sean event. 10th National Assembly leadership, that's the kicker. We never had enough consultations on Akpabio, Abbas and others. That's according to APC. With 3 riders, aggrieved senators-elect threaten to decide fate of party's choice at inauguration. Party will become history if North is edged out. That's according to Yari, senator-elect. Uzo Kalu demands justice for Southeast. And then below the photograph there on the front page, which is the photograph there shows some of the chieftains of the PDP at the meeting. Kano's release, Supreme Court to hear federal government's appeal September 14th. Ozakume begs for bail. Governorship polls, INEC to publish names of Kogi, Imo, and Bayelsa candidates today. Nigeria's oil production falls below 1 million mark. That is 1 million barrels per day. I think it's about 990-something thousand barrels per day. That's the lowest we've had in several months. 45% of children in Kano have no birth registration. And this attributed to UNICEF. Also from the leadership newspaper, you have the same, virtually the same stories. 10th National Assembly, that's partly what I just read out. Inauguration, PMB relocates, that's President Muhammadu Buhari, relocates to Glass House. And then says, of course, the Glass House is within the presidential villa itself, and it serves as a transitional abode for the outgoing president and their spouse before the handover period. G5 governors shown meeting as Atiku laments PDP lost glory. Adamawa, Kogi, Oyo, and 5 others take $500 million livestock loan. Oguta Lake and Orashi River project next game changer, according to Shibajo. I think those are the headlines. Just by the way, from the foot of the front page of the New Telegraph, foot of the front page of the paper, it says pancreatic cancer vaccine prevents tumors returning. Pancreatic cancer vaccine prevents tumors returning. So that's one of the health stories you have there on the front page of the New Telegraph.
No mention of side effects, the pancreatic
no,
cancer.
you have to go. You have to.
Okay, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's like
medicine is progressing. That's
right. Like cervical cancer vaccine. This is a vaccine that they're talking about that it can prevent tumors from returning.
That's it.
And so the details are on page 26 of the paper.
That's it. The other day I said an editor doesn't tell an editor what to edit or what to say. But when we see things coming from our clan that don't quite, bring out the kind of flavor you want to talk about it. If it's opinion anyway. There's a columnist in the Punch is asking who ate the fattest kidney, Buhari or Ekweremadu. I mean, I think given the circumstances of the Ekweremadu matter and all that, and the fact that somebody's kidney is ailing somewhere, I think we should be careful how we choose.
I think it's just distasteful.
It is distasteful. It is distasteful. The other time I mentioned one, I'm not going to mention the newspaper, way back in time. Finance minister returns to Nigeria in a wheelchair. What's the meaning of that? No, Finance minister back in Nigeria still needs further medical care. Could have done. But then an editor doesn't tell an editor what to do. Okay.
I'm just wondering, with the plummeting of our production capacity.
Standards.
Yes, production capacity in the petrol to lowest ever. I mean, this is the lowest I've heard. I'm wondering, at a time it was, the boys were at the, at the seas, they were disturbing, the pipelines were being threatened. I'm wondering what could be a major factor, for our low productivity.
Yeah, that's when the pilfering was, finally accosted some 8 months ago. We thought we saw a shooting up of them. So why would consistency not be assured in a matter that is practically at our economic jugular? Why would we not do things to make sure that we have money to sustain our lives, whether we like it or not? Crude sales account for quite a good chunk of what keeps us going in the country. So what amount of effort are we really determined to inject into a critical sector?
And we must also not forget that the budget benchmark was based upon certain projections.
Exactly. When you understood that, trouble arises in terms of how estimates will eventually translate into balance development for the people. Yeah. Debt servicing hits $112 million monthly, says CBN. Then there's a warning from the budget office that we're closing the space towards the capping, the ceiling and all that. I think I don't see the possibility of the current administration borrowing more money in the remaining space of time, but that is not even the point. The point is we have to be careful, because government is a continuity. The problem with this we tend to have in this country is that we see one administration as separate from the next one, even though they are of the same party. And people will say that's because ideology is not making an insistent remark about its presence in governance. It is supposed to be a continuity. Why do we have abandoned projects in the country, for instance? It is because the thinking of an incoming administration may differ from the thinking of the one that just there. So whatever happens, we must always ensure that in terms of borrowing, we have a national policy towards it and all that, so that we do not at any point begin to panic over hitting the limit or not. I think that's
in terms of abandoned projects, yes. We must also acknowledge the fact that on assumption of office in 2015, a cardinal objective of the Buhari administration was to say, look, we'll take a look at brown projects rather than just embarking on greenfield projects. So ongoing, abandoned or discarded projects, we'll take on them and bring them to completion. And that's what we have seen with some of the road projects, infrastructural projects, and so on and so forth. So that should be a carryover, as it were, in terms of attitude for the next administration. I mentioned my concern yesterday with respect to what we are seeking to borrow, because the report says that the $800 million is a loan from the World Bank to enable the government pay some 10.5 million Nigerians a stipend of 5,000 naira every month. And I ask, why are we borrowing for consumption? Why are we borrowing for consumption? These 10.5 million Nigerians who will receive this amount of money, and those who have been receiving it in the past, how many of them have been uprooted from poverty and misery? So that's what else can we do, or should we do to ensure that we get succor to these persons?
That's it.
Because you borrow, you must pay. You borrow, you must pay. And now the warning is a very timely one. That look, we are almost breaching the threshold of borrowing in terms of what you get as revenue and then what you pay out for debt servicing. Now, the argument always, was made in recent years. Our problem is not the debt to GDP ratio, but rather our problem is the revenue, collecting revenue.
Debt to revenue.
You haven't been able to increase that capacity, so why are you still borrowing? That's one. And let's not forget, because I remember this very clearly then, almost 40 years ago, when President Muhammadu Buhari, then Major General Muhammadu Buhari, as military head of state, Arola Pasholeye was then finance minister, and it was announced because the country was laboring under the huge debt burden carried over from the Second Republic. The debt servicing was about, I think, 35% or 40%. There was alarm all over the country that how could you be using 35-40% of your revenue for debt servicing. What then do you have for others? So today, I think that policy advisors should have a rethink and say, look, why do you need this quantum of money? Do you need it at this time? And I'm wondering, I don't know why we never had debates as to why we didn't borrow money to build new refineries.
All right, thank you, Kingsley Chukwudi, thank you. Just before we round off, I'd just like to again say thank you to, maybe on behalf of all of us, to this administration for the Oguta Lake Orashi River dredging. Yesterday, I listened to the live broadcast, and of course, the speeches by the different guests that attended, and the spin-off that project hopes to attract not just to the people of the Southeast but also to Nigeria, and I think it's very commendable. It's a lawful, laudable project, and I hope that one day we'll be able to have the governor of Imo State, Senator Hope Uzodinma, on this program to speak more about that. But Chukwudi,
thank you so much. When things affect people in the hinterland, villagers like me are happy. I am really happy about that project.
Thank you. Yes, that's an opinion for you both. That's fine. This is the flag off of the dredging. And dredging, you have two types of dredging: capital dredging, maintenance dredging. And the insistence, therefore, should be on, if you achieve the capital dredging, be sure you carry on with the maintenance dredging, which is what should have made River Niger navigable all year round. The capital dredging was done at some point right up to Port Barrow. What happened to the maintenance dredging?
Let's dash them optimism.
All right.
The other issue we clear, yes. We don't have the time. Yes. But this is a very serious issue, and I believe we'll take it up on some other occasion. 45% of children in Kano have no birth registration, according to UNICEF. So it's a civic and social task, not just for the state government, but also for the NPC, that's the National Population Commission, to ensure that proper registration takes place, birth and deaths take place throughout the country. That is one of the ways you can gather data about your population.
Kingsley. So let's take a short break. It's Good Morning Nigeria. The program returns presently. All right, welcome back, and you're watching Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the NTA. And our conversation this morning is a continuation of our discussion yesterday on utilizing research findings and reports. And to set the tone for our conversation this morning, let's listen to excerpts of yesterday's discussion, and it's put together by Ekene Ndulue.
Of recent, we are beginning to realize that researchers need to push their research into the market place. Again, within the universities, not many universities have units, or should I say a small startup companies that could take the product of research, starting from patenting, to meet the users of research, the new knowledge that has been generated. And this is something that we have to begin to think about.
50% of the research that comes out from Nigerian institutions usually are done with private funds from the researchers. So therein, right off the bat, you have a huge constraint to translation. So when it comes to funding, it's not just the government. The government must come in together with stakeholders, and the primary stakeholders are the companies that will facilitate translation of this research. Take, for example, we're looking at a medication for prevention of HIV. The stakeholders, the first stakeholders you would look at is the government, because this is tackling a public health issue. The second very primary stakeholder are the pharmaceutical companies that are going to go into manufacturing of these products.
If research and development is a priority of government, we won't be where we are today. There will be clear funding for it. It's capital intensive. There will be clear policies on what should be done, and then we will have effective utilization of research results. So there must be strong linkage between government and the private sector if we have to effectively utilize research results. If you assume
it is the Minister of Health or the Director in the Ministry of Health that should come and paraphrase issues that should be brought forward as priority. That mindset is wrong. Now, let's understand one fact. For research results to come out meaningfully, to be utilized, it must be the product of a demand. And I believe we must emphasize on demand-driven research agenda.
All right, you've heard it, the excerpts of our conversation yesterday on utilizing research findings and reports. So, to continue today, let me quickly introduce our distinguished guest right here in the studio. We have joining us Professor Azikiwe Peter Onwalo, is the President, African University of Science and Technology, Abuja. He's also President, Nigeria Academy of Engineering and former Director General, Raw Materials Research and Development Council. And we'd like to really welcome you, sir, to our program this morning.
Thank you.
All right, Kingsley.
Also here with us in the studios is a frequent guest on Good Morning Nigeria, Dr. Umar Bindri, former Director General, National Office for Technology Acquisition and Promotion, NOTAP. Former Secretary to the State Government of Adamawa and currently National Coordinator of the National Social Investment Program. Dr. Bindri, we're glad to have you this morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians.
Okay. And joining us via Zoom from Malawi, Professor Mohammed Haruna. Professor Mohammed Haruna is immediate past Executive Vice Chairman of the National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure, NASENI. Professor Haruna, we're glad to have you this morning.
Good morning, Nigerian. Good morning to you. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Okay, so gentlemen, I'm sure you had the benefit of listening to excerpts of our conversation, the first part of our conversation yesterday. Since all three of you, as it were, are fresh guests for the discussion, perhaps it's only advisable to have you get a lead-in into the gravamen of our conversation, which is the effective utilization of research findings and reports in Nigeria. And that presupposes that there is a challenge in that respect. Why is it so, Professor Onwal?
Yes, the challenge is there. When we look at the economy of Nigeria and the way we are working, you see that the needs for goods and services are there. Innovations, goods and services to service the economy. Everything we do, from when we wake up in the morning to brush our teeth, to eat, to prepare food, to drive cars, to go to work, do everything. There are goods and services that are required. Now, when you look at the environment, you find that over 80% of what we are using in terms of products, goods and services are either brought in from offshore or they're actually not made here in Nigeria. And yet, the need is there. And on the other hand, you now find that we have a very robust research system in terms of numbers, the universities, the institutions of research and so on, and then even the manufacturing sector. A lot of people, many people are trying to do things and they need these research findings. So that's the challenge and the problem that we have. The demand is there. Those who are doing research are there, but a lot of work that they're doing are sitting there. Many people don't even know that those research results are there. And then the people that need the research, the commercial and the productive sector, in most cases, they have to fly out of the country to look for one thing or the other for their production or for their services. So it's a problem that really needs some kind of solution, so that those who are producing the research and then those who need the results of the research to be able to produce goods and services will be able to harness those research results in order to produce goods and services that are made in Nigeria, not just for Nigeria, but for the entire world, so that we get to a point where this country will stop being the dumping ground where people just bring in anything from toothpicks to the high-tech things in the medical field and so on. we should be able to produce some of these things. And the population, the demand is there. In this continent, this is where you have the demand, the population. And we have, beyond Nigerian citizens, we have the entire West African sub-region and the entire Africa. If you look at the Africa Free Trade Agreement, it's a wide opportunity for us. So why shouldn't we produce these things? And what amazes me sometimes is that when you go to all these places where they manufacture these things, whether you are talking of goods and services, you find that Nigerians are even behind these things. So why are we not able to harness these research findings and innovations? That's the problem.
That's our question.
Yes. So we need to find a solution. And in fairness to government, people say government should do this, government should do that. Government, I think, to some extent, has done what they should do.
I think we should just pause you a while.
Okay.
Because you touched on a very important point, that we need to investigate further. And let's bring in Professor Mohammed Haruna, who is the immediate past Executive Vice Chairman, National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure, NASENI, who is joining us via Zoom from Malawi. And I'm wondering, Professor, is it that sometimes when I see piles and piles of academic research works done by students in the tertiary institutions, my mind, I'm like, why all this waste and all that? Do we have a focused, deliberate research system, or is it that most of what Prof here talked about, the breakthroughs that we hear done by Nigerians in other climes, is it just perchance? Is it that something that we just stumble onto?
Thank you very much. Yes, you are right. There are so much research coming out of academic institutions. Those research, majority of it will not go to the market because in the first place, the academicians, the student doing the research, just do their research based on either what suits their interests or what is available around them. And because there is no any concerted funding, they are not challenged that this is what you should research on. This research are uncoordinated. They are not need-oriented. They are not market-driven. It is not geared towards solving any problem. And the fact that there is poor coordination, lack of synergy and collaborations, and the fact that majority of our industries in Nigeria do not patronize academic institutions or research institutions, so everyone research what he needs. I'm not saying people should stop researching into what they need. After all, there is what is called in Japan useless invention. You can walk into exhibitions of research output companies to select what they need and say, let's develop this further into commercializations. Of course, this is worrisome. But I want to tell you that if you have 100 research output and 2 or 3 of it actually go to the market, usually those output, the benefit to be driven, the commerciality and profitability of those things usually should average out and turn out to be beneficial, so that the pure success can make up for those that are pending. Now, if people research into many things and all those things do not go to the market, in the process they gain experience, they are able to, and certain things that may not be deployed today, if there is synergy between private sector and the researchers or academic institutions, one day they will find their way into the market. Now, solution to this is what we do from day one. What we do now, particularly from NASENI, is to commence from day one, researching into what the manufacturers, into the industries, what they need, what is their need. What is this that they have problem in their production system that they need solution. I'm aware that by next week, some product will come out to be launched, God willing, by the Vice President of Nigeria, that is done by Naseni, but in collaboration with private sector. From day one, what do you want to do? And that is the reason why into many things, Naseni partners with the key players in the industries. For example, with the military, not just to do what helicopter we need. What is it the Nigerian Air Force needs? With the army, what is it that Nigerian army wants? That we should research together and produce the result for them. Also with Navy, so also with many private sectors. Now, what I am advocating is that research and development should continue in the institutions. In the process, in the academic institutions, sometimes the students do research in order for them to even know the method, the process of doing the research. But most importantly, industries, because our culture, our orientation is such that whoever wants to establish an industry, he will go abroad and see what process is successful, what juice making process is successful. So he will bring the formula, the machines to do it, the method, everything from abroad. So whenever you do something locally, he doesn't know how to modify, to adopt into his machines. Now that fabrication of machines are done locally, I think with what the enabling environment created by the government of Buhari, we have started seeing changes. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Professor Haruna. We will pause you and then, of course, return to you later on in the course of the conversation. Let's welcome again to the conversation this morning. He was with us yesterday, and advisedly we thought that he should also be part of the discussion today, especially from the policy angle, and weigh in as well with the legislative perspective on issues of this nature against the background of his many years in the research corridor. Distinguished Senator Aliu Sabi Abdullahi is the Deputy Chief Whip of the Senate. Senator Sabi, we are glad to have you this morning.
Thank you very much for having me. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, but before we bring you in, let's turn to Dr. Umar Bindri. Dr. Umar Bindri, of course, is former DG of NOTAP and also a regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria. Look, the basic question is, how do we move from our inventions, innovations, and discoveries from the laboratory to the consumer table?
Thank you very much. This is actually a very short question, but it's very, very broad. Nigerians should understand that don't take this particular question very literally. It's a very complex question. First, this country is a big country in the sense that it has many mouths to feed. It has a lot of people to provide housing facilities. People need infrastructure, roads, power, telecommunications. So anybody who is thinking that there is no need is just wasting his time. There's a large pool of opportunities and need for technology-driven, knowledge-driven, competencies-driven products and services. Then now, if you think Nigeria or the government doesn't know this, it's not true. Nigeria has a very, very flamboyant and vast infrastructure and facilities for bringing out knowledge that is required for its survival. We have over 240 universities. This is not for nothing, involving government, private, and state-owned universities. And this idea to have this number, I am sure our leaders believe that there is a need to breed the critical mass of highly skilled manpower to do so many things, including research and provision of technology for our survival. But the beginning of the problem is that I think we have remained at the literal education and learning and reading level at our university, to the extent that when you go to university, you come out, it's only a certificate to present and you become unemployed. We have not graduated to the creativities and so on and so forth. The second level is that it's now delving on the research. Who are these people who are gingering the knowledge and the technologies that is required? We actually have a very, very healthy research system. Nigeria has the fastest rate of producing professors. Go and check. There are now 25-year-old professors in engineering, in medicine, in this country. And professorship is not a chieftaincy title. It's not because they like the face of your father or your father was a president or no. No, you must be in a university. You must do research. You must publish well before you gradually crawl to become a lecturer 2, lecturer 1, senior lecturer, associate professor, professor, and grow. So having this high rate of professorial people demonstrate that Nigeria is actually producing a lot of knowledge. But if you concentrate in producing these PhDs and professors, publishing and so on, all you get is knowledge and papers. Go to University of Ibadan today and say, hey, professors, give us the pile of the last 10 years, the abstracts, only abstract. That is the brief story of the papers. It will feel like 10 lecture theaters. But if you ask the question, well, you have all this knowledge. How has it translated to solving the water problem? How has it translated to solving the farming problem? How has it translated to solve the employment problem? Then we get a big question mark. But why? The reason is this knowledge, if you concentrate just producing the knowledge, you are again, not that it is not totally useful, but you are not going to make progress. So you need to produce another crop of people. People who can take this knowledge, translate it into something useful. You know, if it is, this liquid crystal display that you see is initially a scientific product which is just like clay, like paste. But when you excite it with electricity, it's sort of flashing and so on and so on. And then the professor is jumping up and down. I've succeeded in making particles to flash. And he can publish that and become a professor. But it's totally useless. You need the people now, the next who will now take this paste, press it into sheets, control the voltage, and you start getting green, red, yellow, and now you have gotten technology. It means something applicable has come out of the knowledge. And this technology is not as useful. I had a distinguished senator yesterday talking about prototypes. Yes, at prototype level you can do whatever you like. Huge machine as big as this house, only to thresh rice. It's only an idea. Nobody can buy it. But at that level, what Nigeria has not understood is that you must also turn this knowledge, this useful knowledge, into an asset. The beginning of turning it into an asset is to protect it. And its protection is intellectual property. Intellectual property is a vast field that cannot be discussed in this, but what most people know is about patents. But you have trademark, you have industrial design, you have trade secrets, you have so many lists of intellectual property. Unless you can protect this property, this knowledge property, which is invisible, you're not going to make anything. This property is just like any property, like a house. If you don't have the certificate of occupancy, I sit in your house, we'll go to court until the end of time. The same thing with this intellectual property, you need the certificate. That patent is the certificate to say, this knowledge is owned by you, it is applicable. If I want to use it, I must talk to you. You can give me for free or I can buy it. So this is the value chain. Produce the knowledge, turn the knowledge into usefulness, protect it, then industry will talk to you. That is when you enter the innovation side. Okay. You know.
All right, Dr. Binde, thank you. Thank you. In fact, I feel as if I was in the classroom, you know, so, and I've learned a lot, really. But let me bring in Senator Sabi. You talked about, you know, demand-driven research. And if the research is not, you know, demand-driven, the same gap that Dr. Binde is talking about will still persist. But first of all, for even the group of people you talk about to have something to work on, the research must be, you know, marketable. There must be a value, you know, a value place for it in the society. So my question to you will be, what should motivate research?
Well, first, thank you very much for that question. I think the answer is very straightforward. National interest. When we define our national interest, that should be the beginning of whatever should drive our research. And I maintain that the moment there is a disconnect between research efforts and national development priorities, you have already failed. And I'm sorry to say that many instances, both the universities, the research institute, this is where we normally get it wrong. When you check even the Enabling Act establishing these research bodies, there are very clearly stated mandates, and like I said yesterday, the reason why at one point, and I'm happy you brought in the vice chairman of Naseni. Naseni is now reinvigorated and strengthened. It's been an old body. At one point, all the research institutes were all more or less under Naseni. At one point, in the 80s. But seeing the large nature and the disconnect between most of the institutions and their sectoral development agenda, that was why I think around 92, 93, they were reverted back to their parent ministries. And I think that was where most of the research in the agricultural sector were returned back to the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, those that are in the medical and that kind of a thing. So the point is simple. The moment you identify your national interest, then it should guide whatever research agenda you should be having. And here, I'm happy he painted out the picture of the national assets we have, the knowledge economy. Because right now, people are talking about the knowledge economy. And the knowledge economy is a continuum from knowledge generation to knowledge dissemination and to knowledge utilization. So, and utilization happens at the level of research. And that is where you need a new set of knowledge again. Because those who are in applied research are expected to have more profound, vast understanding of the market, understanding of society, so that anybody who has a critical role to play will be brought in. For example, it might interest you to know all these gadgets we are using. Who are those who design how it should look? They are artists. But those artists have to work with a scientist, because by the time he brings his own aesthetic, the scientist will tell you that your aesthetic will be blocking and that is why the aperture you see in cameras and whatnot, these are all collaborative effort, and that is the level at which design of products and things like that happen. So I think the point to be made here is simple. If government wants to get the best out of research, we have very vast knowledge, and like I must say, the Nigerian scientific world, or the research world, because it cuts across both scientific and non-scientific areas, we have very brilliant minds. But that enabling environment that is coordinated, I'm happy Professor Mohammed was talking about uncoordinated research. I will give you an example. In agriculture, we have what we call nationally coordinated research projects. When this thing started in the 80s, that was what brought about the Ife Brown, beans that became popular. It was a product of the National Coordinated Research Project. But you see, the lack of continuation of some of these policies is what normally leads us into failing to get the best. India has been operating Nationally Coordinated Research Project for the past 30 to 40 years. And what it means is simple.
And that failure is linked to probably, again, maybe funding.
Of course. How do you get... You see, is the debate will continue. The egg and the chicken, which one comes first? You see, when government puts in money, government is expecting to see results. And that's why I always say that those of us who find ourselves in the research system, when you don't prioritize how you fund your research, and your research effort becomes too expensive, definitely government will not be encouraged. And I must say that honestly, studies have shown that our research effort is one of the most expensive. I was involved in the studies where we try to look at the cost of developing the technology, and we realize that truly the cost is expensive, because we bring in, you see, the research institutions are treated as civil servants, and if a researcher is traveling, there must be DTA. If there is no DTA, he won't go. Now, the reason is simple. You've not created a system where by the time he develops a technology, he talked about protection. Protection is actually talking about beneficiation. That is, sharing the benefits. Now, in systems where they have a system where the moment the technology is out, all people who participated in its development are guaranteed certain benefits. Honestly, they will not ask you to give them overtime money, give me transport money. They won't ask for those things. Their interest is, if we get this thing out, I'm going to hit this jackpot. That is their motivation. But in our own case, it is made to look like the ordinary public service. At the same time also, promotion and upgrading in the system is not tied down to useful inventions or useful technological development. Somebody may develop a product and the best he gets is an upgrade from just this level to the next level. There is no special award. There is nothing that comes out to tell him, oh, for this your effort, because it is going to save the country some cost. This is the benefit we are accruing to you. So it's a whole gamut of issues.
NTA has been running this program for a very long time. I can remember. I think it's a young scientist. I can't remember now. Yes, where you bring in all the young students from across the country, and over time we've seen what these young students have been able to invent. Yeah. But it ends up on the screens and nobody takes it up. I don't know. Kingsley, you have a question?
Well, yeah, of course. So, a lot of questions. Before I come to Professor Onwalo, I would like Senator Sabi Abdullahi to walk us through again what he refers to as the knowledge economy. Because there seems to have been a twist to the understanding of what knowledge economy is all about. Sometimes in the popular thinking these days, when you hear of knowledge economy, everybody just thinks that it's our smartphones, IT, and so on and so forth. But you walked us through it, and some of the details didn't quite stick in my head. You say, of course, you generate knowledge, and then, of course, ultimately you apply it, and then we see the patent. You want to walk us through that again before I go to Professor Onwalo?
All right, thank you very much. I think the issue of knowledge economy is simply saying, for you to do anything, there is a knowledge behind it, and that knowledge must have been generated by somebody through different research methods, because the people who try to do so, sometimes like yesterday, I think one of the guests was saying, leave serendipity alone. You don't, because it happens. That one is natural. You don't have any control over it. Somebody may just be doing something and accidentally he falls into. That is just what we're saying. Now, whatever it is, he must have now gone back to do some codification of what he has learned, and immediately to try to tell you that if you do the same, you are going to get the result he has also gotten. So the point to be made here is that in a knowledge economy, those who are knowledge generators are part of the economy, because when they generate this knowledge, they also have certain rights over it, like he has tried to tell you the various categories. For example, I said, if you go to some universities now and you are searching through their database of PhD programs, you will click on some very interesting topic. Immediately you click, they will tell you don't have access to this program. The reason is it's protected. It's protected. Somebody has paid for it, and that the output of that particular work, he wants to protect it to get the benefit first before it is made available to the public. So in a knowledge economy, these are the things that happens. Those who even disseminate, they have a way of disseminating. How do you target those who want this information? You may be surprised there are some targeted events, for example, typical of a knowledge economic a practice, where that knowledge to be shared is only given to selected people, either in the industry or in the area where the knowledge is particularly to be used. And you have to get accredited. It's either you are a member and you are paying certain dues over time before they can make such kind of things available to you. These and many other things is what happens in a typical knowledge economy, because they know technology, all of these things everybody can have, but how you apply knowledge to do this as against doing it this way, the process and procedure itself are coded, and somebody is owning it and will not allow you access to it, because if he does, he knows you are going to beat him, you are his competitor. So this is what happened in a classical knowledge economy, and this is what is driving economy these days. That's why you will see suddenly you are using certain things, you are a guru in it, and somebody just comes out with another technology, and suddenly it is changing the game. Take a look at AI, artificial intelligence. Now some people brought Chat GB, and suddenly Just that technology, using the same AI that has been around, somebody has decided to now twist it in a way, and he has coded some process through which he's now able to use that, and many professionals are taking a look because it is affecting how they do their job. In the journalistic field, for example, some people are already saying it is helping them to do their job better. So these are the kind of things we're talking about.
Well, distinguished Senator, thank. We'll come to you. Claire, I want to bring in Professor Onwalu, advisedly. Professor Onwalu, less so in recent times, but many years ago, raw materials research and development was always in the news. Always in the news, and they had a number of exhibitions, and their products were always out there. And even from the name, raw materials. I'm sure if we were to look at our forex outgoings in this economy, we would see how much we spend on the acquisition of raw materials from the outside environment. As I said, those inventions or those discoveries by the Raw Materials Development and Research Council were things that were widely publicized. What happened? That these things appear to have remained on the same shelves, and as we talked about, producers, some of them multinationals, keep going abroad to get the same things for use here. Why? What is that missing link?
Well, yes, you are quite right. Raw Material Council used to be in the news, and I think they are still in the news, but not as much. It again borders on what this issue of continuity, which the distinguished senator talked about. But I must tell you that those things are there, and they are actually working in some situations. Some of the things you see showcased on the TV, newspapers and so on are just a little bit of what is actually happening. I must tell you that what the council, the Raw Material Council has done in the past has really helped this country a lot. There are specific examples of what we call pioneer industries where nobody has been doing this before, and then the council over the years helped in harnessing research from the universities and sending them to the private sector by building an industry and then selling that industry to the private sector. And those industries are actually running. Of course, there are challenges with the entire economy, with power, but they are functioning. At some point, we even came up with the idea of what we call a raw material processing clusters. Every part of this country has either a mineral or an agricultural product. And we actually did studies to show the clusters where these things are. And you can actually then use these clusters and then harness the knowledge that we are all talking about from the environment, from the universities, research institutes, and then put them in the industrial clusters. And these clusters are everywhere. In Abuja here, we have the industrial cluster. But the approach we had at that time was that this cluster should be based on the raw materials prevalent in that environment. And by now, those clusters should be running. In fact, we had the concept, everything was done, that every local government in this country will have a cluster where you can manufacture things based on the raw material available in that environment. And then fed by the research institutes in terms of the knowledge that they are generating. This started actually, and you can see pockets of it still functioning. I think we were at that point, we were at the pilot scale where some of these clusters were established to do minerals processing, to do agricultural raw material processing, and then feed to industries. But I think part of the problem we have in this country is continuity, and that's where the lawmakers come in. I attended one or two of the bills. There's one that is, I think, is on this, the second stage now, so the innovation bill. The Academy of Science is also pushing another bill on research and research funding and so on. Third Fund is doing their own, quite a number of things. But I think one of the things that is missing is coordination, which Professor Harun actually talked about. We need a policy or modified policy which will lead to stronger institutions that will make sure that, for example, one of the ways to solve this is we can create a database an online database where anybody from industry anywhere can click and say, oh, from University of, from BUK, there are these products or these research going on that can lead to. Of course, just like he said, when you click, you can't see all the details because it has to be protected. But at least you know that when you go there, you can actually. But then, one of the challenges I noticed as DG of raw material at that time is that those who actually want to go into production with these things, they need incentives. If I'm a producer, I'm a businessman, I'm more interested in that thing that I'm doing that is giving me profit. But of course, every manufacturer, every production person also needs to be doing R&D. And he doesn't have time and money to do that R&D. So he can actually take the R&D from this database and say, oh, this university in Calabar or this research institute in Lagos, they have this thing I'm looking for. And I don't need to travel to see. I can get it online. Then that system, the policy that has been done will enable, okay, I don't want to use the money I'm using for my business to produce this new product, but I can get this money from somewhere. That's where the funding comes in, probably from government. Then it means I can harness this, then get people, connect that researcher to another manufacturer who will produce that thing, and then I have the product that I need. I don't need to establish another factory for this. And when we do this on a systematic level, what I mean by systematic is, for the new government, for example, we can say every quarter, using this database, we can target X number of products in health, in agriculture, in different sectors.
Based on a national...
Yes, based on the national agenda he talked about. Then, the people who are working on this, and when we did this study, when I was in Raw Material Council, people are there looking for these things. The businessmen are looking for these things. It's just that it's difficult for them to actually do this. And when this is done, then every quarter, for example, you target a certain number of products. Another quarter, you target another product. And just like what Professor Haruna said, out of 100 you will pick, maybe 10, 20 will work. So at the end of the year, you have a certain number of innovations that are hitting the market. But where do you do the innovations?
Professor Wando, thank you. Now that you've touched on innovations, and I don't know what our current global ranking is in science and innovation, but the last time I checked, we were 124 on the global ranking. And my question will go to Professor Mohammed Haruna. And of course, who was up till until months ago, executive vice chairman of NASENI. Again, if we are 124 on the global ranking for innovation, science and innovation, it speaks a lot. I mean, despite the number of universities, the number of knowledge, economy that we have, according to Senator Sabi, despite the system that Dr. Umar Bindi talked about, it speaks to utilization, and NASENI is at the root of science and innovation. I mean, what is the role of research in what NASENI has been able to do today?
Sorry, come again. You say what is the
role of research, R&D, in whatever NASENI has been able to achieve today?
You will agree with me that recently, research and development activities in NASENI has been translating into products. As I said, and what led to that is we re-examine the way we do things and try to find out what are the hindrances and commence research and development together with the end users, together with the private sector. I told you when we research into development of made in Nigeria helicopter, we decided to work with the Air Force, work with their own research team too, what and what is this needed. When we do research into mine resistance, ambush protected, armored personnel carrier, we decided to work with the Nigerian Army. So also with the Nigerian Navy. and even requested to have present in Nigerian Navy dockyard, so that what we are producing exactly and working to produce their needs. That is what I talk about, need-oriented. Again, when we look at the private sector industries, we have industries that from day one we are doing research and development together. Nigerian Machine Tools, we even do research and develop products for Innocent Motors. We even do research and development, as I said in my first presentation today, that they are even in the financial inclusiveness. We discover that a lot of benefits in our cashless system is going to foreign technologies. And I assure you there is a Nigerian input that will be substitute for remitters, for IPPIS, that is targeted to be launched in a week's time. And it is as a result of the political will and the direction Naseni got from the present administration. It has helped many products to come out. Many of our agric research products that were lying in the shelf before, we now have industries that mass producing this into the market. So this has changed, and but this is the development. Proper coordination, need-oriented research, and appropriate funding. Of course, Naseni did it excellently because it has been repositioned under the chairmanship of President Muhammadu Buhari, and it was given fund that it was unable, and the agency was unable to assess in 32 years of its existence, and that's why the impact is being felt. The solar homes that Naseni developed into rural area off-grid installations, many of the solar installations in Nigeria have been based on imported products. Naseni is not only manufacturing and installing, but into commercial quantity. Naseni products are now going into the West African countries. The smokeless stuff in order to save the forest and, of course, improve in carbon footprint of Nigeria to help Nigeria achieve its own portion of global and, of course, climate change, are all contribution as a result of the repositioning of the agency and the improved funding. So the political will is there, the funding has been improved, and the researchers are motivated. Again, what they talk about, it is agreed and appropriate in the policy and approved by the board of Naseni. Any successful team that produce a product that is needed in Nigeria and its commerciability is improved, the team is entitled to 5% of the profit of that product, and the researchers are motivated. Again, in Naseni, so many products that came out, President Muhammadu Buhari has approved accelerated promotion for the team that were involved in different products or in different research and development, and special commendation. And you will recall, even I myself was given the National Merit Award, Officer of the Order of the Federal Republic, and Excellent Public Service Award to motivate others to see that you can start reaping your rewards from the earth, not necessarily in the heaven. So I'm telling you, there are some researchers in Naseni now. What is coming out of smart meter developed by Naseni, what is coming out in this app that we talk about, that you yourself will soon start using, so that you using Naseni develop technology in financial transactions. Some banks have already keyed in. Also, for the Keke Naseni that is now produced by Innocent Motors and so many other products, there are researchers in Naseni now that are smiling into the bank as a result of what government is getting from this product. So things have started changing based on appropriate leadership and, of course, intervention. Thank you.
Oh, okay, Professor Mohammed Haruna, thank you very much for the information you've just provided in response, in part, I believe, to the suggestions made by Senator Sabir Abdullahi with regard to how to incentivize researchers. But what you talked about relates to Naseni. We don't know whether it's the same at Raw Material Development Council. We don't know whether it's the same, for instance, at NOTAP registers them. That's Technology Acquisition and Intellectual Property. We don't know whether it applies to Agricultural Research Council of Nigeria. You have a number of research institutes under universities. If they don't go on strike, I'm sure they should have the benefit of what comes to them. So, Professor Mohammed Haruna, thanks a lot. We'll come back to it. There's one issue I would like, I don't know whether you're already working on that. Let me just throw this in. I believe that we are all concerned about it. It has to do with our power system. Somebody will tell you that one of the reasons why transformers blow up from time to time is due to overload. At the lightest flash of lightning, the entire neighborhood is thrown into darkness. Could we have more rugged transformers built to our environment so that the resistance, I'm not into physics and all that, so that the resistance is much stronger, it's much tougher, because I mean, you go elsewhere around the world and no matter the amount of lightning, unless of course trees are falling and severing cables and so on and so forth, the light is still on. But here, before just a flash, last night for instance, before a flash, every nation started hearing were generators. Could we have more rugged transformers that will withstand some of those lightning flashes, that will withstand, I know that there's overload, but that will withstand overload and so on and so forth. I will come back to you later, Professor Haruna. But back to Dr. Umar Bindri. Dr. Umar Bindri, good stories we are hearing from Naseni, but I would imagine that these are early stages because we need many more producers to latch onto their products. And the key issue is, how do you achieve that handshake between researchers and producers? And more importantly, what is the element of IMC, if you like, integrated marketing communication? I have done this. The researcher is content to say, I have done this, I keep it on the shelf. But how do you take it out from the shelf, as I asked earlier, so that the producer becomes aware of it? And as Senator Sabir Abdullahi was saying a while ago, it's like having a trade journal. A trade journal has circumscribed circulation. You have to be an insider to have this. What is it that is missing? Is it on the side of our researchers, or on the side of our producers, or on the side of government? Or we need to create, let me not use the word middle persons. You need middleman to link them.
Well, actually, starting with your transformer wahala, Professor Haruna actually is professor of transformers. That is actually what his whole profession. By the way, yes. But you know, Nigerians tend to undermine their capacity and capability. Actually, in real sense, we are trying, but the visibility, like any other thing, of our trying, the appreciation, the knowing, even knowing. Our leaders sometimes don't even know what is happening. And we have developed and sedimented this culture of islands, pockets. We don't like working together. Universities like competing against each other. Research institutes don't work with universities. Researchers themselves, these professors that you see, they are against each other. They're working against each other, even if they're in the same area. So we have to learn, first of all, to ensure that we have what is called as the national system of innovation, systems that are working together towards goals to actually move forward, and it's beginning to happen now, but this cannot happen if you do not have a mentor. All countries that have developed, you find that it is the president that will say technology must drive the development of this country, and it's beginning to creep that our president also is now climbing onto that level. Secondly, you see, institutionally, we are not even matured again to breed this. Look at this intellectual property. We have 4 key institutions to do with intellectual property. In the Ministry of Trade and Investment, you have the Patent Registry and you have the Registry of Trademark. This is only trading. and they see themselves as the masters of intellectual property. But when you hit the copyright, it is in the Ministry of Justice. The Copyright Commission is there. Then we want to look at the technological drivers for the technology transfer and innovation breeding. It's NOTAP. It's in the Ministry of Science and Technology. I can tell you when I went to become DG of NOTAP, these three institutions, even the DGs want to kill each other. They don't like to see each other. So I had to work very hard to actually be, now
to survive.
Let me tell you, let me tell you, this country does not have a policy on intellectual property as we speak over the 60, 70 years of independence. Why? Because we have institutions, you can say policies drive institutions, but there is no clear intellectual property policy clear on the table. Secondly, when you try to move these things together, even the system itself will hit you. NOTAP, for example, is a technology transfer. I can tell you the DG of NOTAP is seeing what he is saying as the knowledge economy. Every single foreign company that is operating in Nigeria operates in Nigeria because they have technology. And Nigeria must pay for this technology. So if it is roads, the design, how do you weigh it, the wear and tear, selection of materials, construction strategies, all this is technology Nigeria doesn't have. Therefore, all these construction companies are buying it from very expensive. You look at the banking sector, all the software from Finacle, SAP and so on, it's all imported technology. You can jump up and down to say, oh, your banking sector is developing, but the cream of it, the technology, is actually foreign. When you look at, and it is not a secret, and Dr. Bin does not say secret, look at every project, the distinguished senator is here, that is commissioned by our leaders. You see one foreigner behind our leader. That is the driver. The rest of us, we are clapping, cutting tapes, and so on and so forth. This is just paraphernalia. But the driving force, that linkage, is not available. Therefore, our trains are by those people. Our nice roads are by those people. Our glasses and skyscrapers are by those people. This is what Nigeria has to develop. And countries develop because they say, look, if we can make it, you cannot come here and then force us to use your own. Use our own. If not, please get out. You have to be bold to do this. And you have to drive your people to believe in you. Otherwise, if you say, we know how to drill boreholes, and if you want to bring technology to drill borehole, there's no space here. You may end up in Nigeria not having any borehole because the system will just stop. So there has to be, like Professor Naseni is saying, drive the producers, motivate them, ensure that when they are motivated, they are making money, they are buying helicopters, and so they will not strike. So, but finally, I want to challenge the system too, because you see, TED Fund provide a lot of resources for research and facilities. And when you go to convocations now, I go to a lot of convocations, I give lectures. When they give you that booklet, it's like an album, lecture theater and so on. But what you will not see in that booklet is how many PhDs in critical technologies have I produced? How many patents has this university actually registered? How much of these patents have been commercialized? How much money is coming back from industry to this university? You will not see in these booklets. This has to be seen if Nigeria is actually to link its own knowledge to its own development.
All right, Dr. Omar Binde, thank you. Let's quickly take a short break. When we come back, I have a question for Senator Sabi. Okay, welcome back. Once again, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the NTA, and we're looking at, of course, research, utilization of research in Nigeria, why, the low record of that. And I said I had a question for Senator Sabi. Actually, it's a question I know anybody can take, but the question goes to the distinguished senator. I don't know if this is a matter of nationalism or patriotism, but whichever it is, it speaks to one thing: national interest, having interest. And I discovered that even when research works, added, value, are turned into products, valuable products. We don't seem, we as Nigerians don't seem to recognize, the work done by such people, such researchers. And I say this because of what happened during COVID-19 pandemic and the works of many, medical doctors and researchers. Some of them, including Professor Maurice Iwu, came up with a particular, the product, out of his research. We didn't recognize that. I don't know what Professor Iwu is doing today. He probably is doing his thing, maybe in collaboration with foreigners or whatever, So where does nationalism and patriotism for even the products that have come out of research by Nigerians, hold?
Well, thank you very much for this question. But I think it also links back to an issue that was discussed but not fully brought out. And yesterday it also was discussed. I actually made a note of it. I didn't really get to speak on it, which is industry uptake incentive. Somebody, I think Professor Haruna talked about it. Yesterday it was flashed. And what you are talking about here is also linked tangentially to this issue. The point to be made here is simple. No matter how patriotic you want Nigerians to be, Nigerians are very sophisticated. Nigerians have seen the good life. And in terms of our taste, Nigerians have one of the highest taste. These are social, cultural issues within our own, society, that whatever you are doing as a researcher, you need to bring those factors into consideration. Now, what do I mean? Today, as we speak, if you look at dairy product, for example, it's one of the areas where Nigeria imports a lot. But there are some developments happening now that you may not take note of. Nigerians are suddenly becoming fans of things like Greek yogurt, things like low-fat yogurt. They want to take yogurt, but they also don't want to take the ones that will give them health challenges. And it might surprise you before, and even ice cream. Before, when you go to the shelf, all you see is imported. But it might amaze you when you go and see some products packaged. You will think they are imported, but take a look. You see an address in Kubwa. You see an address in Ikeja, in Lagos, and so many other places. Which means for any product that you want people to patronize, the product life cycle must be respected. What do I mean? As you develop the product, the packaging, the appeal, the pricing, and so many other things must be right. And when you do that, people will patronize it. And there are quite a number of products, and I think this brings to mind some of the issues being raised. I think Prof was, just informally we were discussing. He was talking about progress that have been made. The point is maybe because we don't have a system where we collate all of these things for us to see the progress we are making in terms of product development. And I think as we were discussing, I think I saw that you were talking about this. All this discussion is things that should benefit the incoming government. It will be good if the incoming government decide to take a look at those things we import. What are they? Out of the things we import, how many do we have matured environment for us to be able to ensure they are domesticated in a manner that you can give incentive to people who are producing this so that they can be competitive. And in being competitive, develop products that are up to scale, develop products that are as qualitative as anyone that you are importing, and at the end of the day, people will be forced to take the Nigerian product. I think
this incentive, contextualize these incentives so that...
Yeah, when you talk about incentive, for example, the cost of doing business in Nigeria is something that bothers a lot of the people who are into manufacturing. How much of this, you see, we talk about subsidy, where we decide, we are talking about subsidy in petrol. Some countries are doing subsidy, but not in petroleum. They are doing subsidy in their manufacturing and other things, so that at the end of the day, when products come out, it is affordable to their citizens. So we need to really move outside some of these areas and begin now to look at, if you identify a product and you say this product has been consuming so forex, and you looked around in terms of the infrastructure available in country for this product to be manufactured, you can incentivize the production value chain in such a manner that it brings down the cost of manufacturing to the manufacturer. An idea where, for example, the manufacturer has to be the NEPA of his own company, the manufacturer has to be the water board of his own company, he has to be the civil defense of his own company. All these things are areas where you should incentivize. I will give you a classical example. There are companies that should be treated as national assets. Remove politics. When they are doing things that are good, anything that leads to their production area, you must increase the security presence there to give comfort and safety to people who are in that particular area. The country is going to foot the bill of ensuring that the security there is beefed up. These are the kind of areas you can incentivize and ensure that people who are bringing in their money, who will even bring technical partners, are feeling safe. They can do their production and they are sure that whatever projections they have made in terms of their production, they are able to meet it. So I think the point to be made here is simple. You see, human beings have choice. And some people go to great length to make this choice. Somebody told me there are, for example, all these dresses we talk about. In Nigeria, we prefer a jacket that is produced in Aba, rejacketed or repackaged as produced somewhere in the Bahamas and brought back. He will prefer to go for that. But if you tell him the person who produced it is local, he may begin to have a resentment. I think this is the things we need to work on. There are quite a number of things we need to work on, and the incentives should give guarantees. For example, you have products that you are producing. Make it a policy that any government that is spending money, and I think that is one of the things we've captured in the procurement. Yes, in the Procurement Act. We are saying any government where you are spending money of government, then you should ban certain things from being, purchased using government funds in that particular area, because there are people who are paying you tax, they are employing your citizens, so they are contributing to your development. You should encourage them.
Okay, Senator Sabi Abdullahi, thank you very much. Gentlemen, I want to throw this in against the backdrop of the many issues that we have raised today. Might it help, for instance, if the government at the federal level, and also taken up again with the National Economic Council, where you have the state governments, convene, like if you may, for want of a better word, a stakeholders retreat or a stakeholders conference, where you have in attendance the Innovation Council. Innovation Council, of course, is chaired by the President, and you have a number of MDAs that are involved in the Innovation Council. You also bring in the Central Bank of Nigeria, you bring in Customs, you bring in MITI, that's the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, and more particularly Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, and the research institutes, or the research bodies. Agricultural Research Council already incorporates that. NASENI, in a sense, incorporates that, and several others that you also have already, will incorporate that. So that some of these teething challenges, working inside, to how to break down the silo mentality that we have had, and then you identify, so look, okay, these are the incentives that we need for industry. Let it now trickle down, or let it now coagulate into a policy that everybody will follow through. Might that help? Very quickly, Prof, and then we'll take also the response of Prof. Haruna.
Actually, we used to have this technology summit. I think it's a very good suggestion that you are suggesting. Next week, Academy of Science is actually hosting a forum in Abuja here on strengthening the research capacity of Nigeria. I'll be speaking there. Something like that can actually be upscaled, and it can be coordinated by Academy of Science, Academy of Engineering, and some of the academies on behalf of government to bring in all these stakeholders.
No. I'm talking about Innovation Council. That one is already statutory, as it were.
Yes.
That is at the apex. It incorporates all of these elements.
Yeah. So I think the point to be made here, Prof, from what you have said, is simply saying that you need a national policy. Now, the advantage of having the Innovation Council is simply that Mr. President is the chairman.
Yes.
So when you bring all of these bodies together, you are now going to be able to come up with a uniform policy Like some of the suggestions or some of the policy pronouncements that Professor Haruna just told us, that there is this incentive, there is this incentive. You see, the boundary of technology development is not easily, circumscribed. If you circumscribe it, then you are not able to move. So to make it possible for people who are even outside your own system to see the need to partner with you, you need this national level and national sanctioned policy incentives that should be able to drive. I think that is the point.
Actually, that policy is in place.
Very, very well.
The Federal Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation actually has a document now, the implementation strategy for the new STI policy.
You see,
and it includes...
It's limited to the science and technology.
No. It's STI, so it includes everybody. And that's where the council actually is located. The council, the Innovation Council.
I know, Prof. You see the point.
So we need to bring that to actually work.
Sorry, Prof. Okay. We are talking, all of us who've been in this field.
You
see, the level to which people, he talked about silo approach. Remember the ministries, all of okay, you check how many ministries are having things to do with research. Many ministries.
No, all of them are in this document I'm talking about.
Let's quickly,
he has brought a document
you're talking about doesn't include NOTAP, doesn't include Copyright Commission, doesn't include trademarks.
No, they're all there. They're all there.
That's to say, to bring them to a round table.
That's fine.
Where you have a conference and they get into researchers.
It's a good idea.
Yes.
Please, let's bring in by Professor Haruna to wade in here so that we can quickly take his perspective. Professor Haruna, are you there? Okay. We'll appreciate if you can just round off your thoughts in 60 seconds.
And tell us about transformer.
Okay, thank you very much. You have talked about power, the transformer, and many things that I will have wanted to respond to it. But quickly, I want to tell you that the problem we're having in the power sector, we don't have national standard. That's why the CENI has an institution dedicated to research and development equipment in power sector, including power transformers. We have trained critical mass of experts to produce Nigerian transformer, and it's one of the projects that President Buhari has approved in collaboration with China Great Wall Industry. We have experts. And because our transformers come from all over the world, people buy from anywhere, some are not even suitable for our environment. Of course, they explode. Some are suitable to work in regions that are naturally having temperature below 0 degree, are not suitable for our environment. Also, until we have substantial input, substantial local content, we must produce certain component of power locally. Otherwise, our power stability will continue to be a mirage. We must be producing. And Naseni, we are producing transformers on component of power, now at a smaller scale, but it's been expanded because not only research and development, but manufacturing facilities are being installed for Naseni in order for the private sector to be part of it for mass production.
Professor Haruna, I'm afraid we run out of time really, so we just have to keep it at that. But we'd like to appreciate the fact that you have talked about the transformer. I'm sure Kingsley is. All right, let's quickly take Dr. Umrobindo, your last.
Well, I think my last comments will be, distinguished senators here, until our leaders start asking the simple questions, all these big things, and so we'll continue in a big cycle. Ask questions like, this promo that we eat, is there any scientific document on it? More than 10 million people are eating this thing every day. At 100 naira, it's 1 billion naira every day.
One more?
No. Then secondly, you have 30 million out-of-school children on the street. Where is the education opportunities? How do you teach them? Where are the bits and pieces? What is the collection? These simplistic things is what will dig into the economy to domesticate this effort. Big things are big things. They will take place. Roads will be there, whatever. But our leaders must start asking these small questions. And I wish one day the president sitting in council will say, Minister of Health, there is a 10 billion naira we're giving you for drugs. How much of it is actually made in Nigeria? And what are the companies? You, Minister of Works, these local content questions evolving at the very highest level could do the magic.
Dr. Omar Binde saying, start by asking small questions. Former Director General, National Office for Technology Acquisition and Promotion, NOTAB, and also National Coordinator, National Social Investment Program, NSIP. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, let me also appreciate Professor Azikiwe Onwalo, President, African University of Science and Technology, Abuja, and also President, Academy of Engineering, and former Director General, Raw Materials Research and Development Council. Thank you. Professor Mohamed Haruna, immediate past Executive Vice Chairman, National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure, NSENI. Thank you very much. You're joining us via Zoom all the way from Malawi. I hope Malawi is cool today. And finally, but certainly not the least, my very good friend, distinguished Senator Aliyu Sabi, Senate Deputy Chief Whip. Good to see you once again, and thank you for coming.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, so.
Well, that's it for us on Good Morning Nigeria for today, and indeed for the week. We appreciate your being with us. Monday is yet another day. Same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Until then, enjoy yourselves, but of course, look after yourselves. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
Remember, the campaign against rape and rapists is still on. We enjoy you to join us in this campaign, and that way you too can be a star. For me and the rest of the Good Morning Nigeria crew, here's wishing you a happy weekend. Bye-bye.